49 cents. That's the cost of one serving. One fruit, sold at every grocery store in the country, and a published clinical trial, peer-reviewed, placebo-controlled, showed it improved insulin sensitivity in just 6 weeks. 6 weeks. But here's what nobody's telling you. Most people eating this fruit right now are doing it completely wrong. Wrong time, wrong form, wrong pairing. And because of that, they're cancelling out the majority of the benefit without ever realizing it. And that's not even the part that should concern you most. The bigger issue is what's already in your kitchen right now. Because if you're someone managing blood sugar, and tens of millions of people are, you've probably got around 7 fruits at home on any given day. 3 of them are genuinely working for you. 4 of them are quietly working against everything you're trying to do. Nobody is telling you which is which. Not the label, not the packaging. In most cases, not your doctor. So today I'm ranking all 7, worst to best. And I'm going to tell you exactly why each one lands where it does. Not based on opinion, not based on what sounds healthy, but based on what actually happens inside your body the moment you eat it. The fruit at the bottom of this list, it's one that people eat by the bowlful every summer, genuinely believing it's harmless because it's mostly water. It isn't as safe as it looks, and the fruit at the top, that's where a woman named Doris comes in. Doris was 71 years old. Her A1C sat at 8.4, well inside diabetic territory. Her endocrinologist had been pushing her toward insulin therapy for 2 full years. She kept refusing. She told him she wanted to give food a real chance first. He was skeptical, but he gave her 90 days. She didn't overhaul her entire life. She didn't eliminate food groups. She didn't fast for 20 hours a day. She made 3 targeted changes, and the anchor of all 3 was one fruit. 90 days later, her A1C came back at 6.1. Her endocrinologist ran the test twice. Then he pulled out his phone and started searching the research. My name is Dr. Leonard Javier, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what Doris did, why it worked at the cellular level, and which fruits you need to stop eating, starting right now. But first I have to explain something, because fruit is uniquely confusing when it comes to blood sugar, and that confusion is causing real damage. People treat fruit like a single category. Like saying fruit is healthy actually means something definitive. It doesn't. Saying fruit is healthy is like saying medication is safe. It depends entirely on which one, how much, and when. Here's a better way to think about it. Picture a medicine cabinet. Some of those bottles have exactly what you need. Some of them, taken at the wrong dose or the wrong time, will make things worse. And a few of them look completely identical from the outside. Same color, same label, same natural packaging, but the contents are entirely different. That's your fruit bowl. Now here's what's actually happening in your body when you eat fruit. The dominant sugar in most fruit is fructose, and fructose behaves very differently from glucose. Glucose enters your bloodstream and gets used directly by your cells for energy. Fructose doesn't do that. It takes a detour. It goes to the liver first, and your liver has to process it in small amounts. With the fruit's fiber still intact, your liver handles this without drama. It metabolizes the fructose calmly, blood sugar stays stable. No spike, no crash, your body barely registers it, but when that fructose arrives at your liver all at once, because the fruit had almost no fiber, or you ate a massive portion on an empty stomach, or the fiber was destroyed by blending, the liver gets overwhelmed. It can't keep up. So it starts converting that excess fructose directly into fat. Triglycerides climb, and then something worse happens. The liver begins developing what's called hepatic insulin resistance. It starts ignoring insulin signal, and when your liver goes insulin resistant, your fasting blood sugar rises even while you sleep, even 12 or 14 hours after your last meal. That's why some people eat carefully all day and still wake up to numbers that make no sense. The liver is working against them overnight. What separates fruits that help from fruits that hurt is not simply how much sugar they contain. It's 3 things working together: the fiber matrix, the polyphenol content, and how fast the sugar gets absorbed. A fruit with robust, intact fiber and high polyphenols slows everything down. The sugar enters your system gradually. The liver isn't overwhelmed, blood sugar stays controlled, and in some cases actually improves. A fruit without those protections hits your liver like a glass of soda. Doesn't matter that it came off a tree. Once you understand that mechanism, everything on this list makes sense, including why the fruit at number 1 doesn't just avoid causing damage, it actively reverses it. Let's start at the bottom. Number 7, watermelon. I know, I can already hear the reaction. Watermelon is mostly water. It's refreshing. It's practically a summer ritual. How could it possibly be a problem? Here's the number that changes the conversation. 72. That's the glycemic index of watermelon. For context, white bread sits at 70. A baked potato is around 78. Watermelon is right in that zone, higher glycemic than most people would ever guess. Now, some nutrition experts will point out that watermelon's glycemic load per cup is technically low because there isn't much actual carbohydrate in each bite. It's 92% water after all. And that's a fair point. 1 cup of watermelon eaten after a meal is probably manageable for most people. But that is not how most people eat watermelon. People cut open a whole melon and sit outside and eat 2, 3, sometimes 4 cups straight, usually on an empty stomach, usually with nothing else. No protein, no fat, nothing to slow absorption, and watermelon has almost no fiber, less than half a gram per cup. No polyphenol protection to speak of. It is, in its essence, very sweet liquid in a green shell. When you eat it that way, in volume alone, the sugar enters your bloodstream fast. For anyone over 65, whose insulin response is already naturally slower, that's a meaningful blood sugar event. The fix is simple. 1 cup after a meal that started with protein, not between meals, not as a standalone snack. After protein. That single change in timing can cut the blood sugar impact close to half. But number 6 is the one that trips people up even more, because it arrives with a health claim built right into its reputation. Number 6, pineapple. Pineapple has an image problem, in the best possible way, from a marketing standpoint. People hear about bromelain, the enzyme in pineapple that has real anti-inflammatory properties. It helps with digestion. There's decent research on joint pain, and so people develop the impression that pineapple is broadly medicinal, that if one component is good for the body, the whole fruit must be safe for blood sugar. That assumption is costing them. The glycemic index of pineapple falls between 59 and 66, sliding toward the higher end as the fruit ripens. 1 cup of fresh pineapple chunks delivers over 16 grams of sugar. The fiber content is 2.3 grams. That ratio, high sugar, low fiber, is exactly the combination that overwhelms the liver's ability to process fructose calmly. A study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition specifically measured post-meal glucose responses to tropical fruits and found that pineapple produced significantly sharper blood sugar spikes than other fruits at the same serving size. And bromelain does not protect you from any of that. Bromelain is a proteolytic enzyme. It breaks down protein. It works on a completely different metabolic pathway than glucose metabolism. The fact that something in pineapple helps your joints has nothing to do with what pineapple does to your blood sugar. Those are 2 separate conversations happening in 2 separate systems simultaneously. People conflate them because the word enzyme sounds comprehensively good for you. It isn't. It's specific. A few small pieces of pineapple after a protein-heavy meal is workable. Never blended, never juiced. But the fruits coming up on this list will give you more flavor with a fraction of the metabolic cost. Number 5 is one I see constantly, and the numbers behind it genuinely surprise people the first time they hear them. Number 5, mango. Mango is one of the most beloved fruits on the planet, and the sugar content is staggering. 1 whole mango, a standard piece of fruit from any grocery store, around $1.50, contains 46 grams of sugar. 46 grams. That is more sugar than a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. Not approximately, more. Mango has real nutritional value. Vitamin C, beta-carotene, decent antioxidants. Nobody is saying it's worthless, but for someone whose pancreas is already working harder than it should be, eating an entire mango is not a health-conscious decision. It's the opposite. The glycemic index of mango ranges from 51 to 60, depending on variety and ripeness. Moderate on paper, but the glycemic load which accounts for how much sugar you're actually ingesting per realistic serving, is high. One whole mango delivers over 50 grams of carbohydrates. That is the same carbohydrate load as eating 2 full slices of white bread in a single sitting. And here's the part that genuinely gets to me. I've had patients in my office who gave up bread completely. No pasta, no rice, they were committed, and they were eating a whole mango every morning for breakfast, because it's natural, because it's fruit. Their fasting glucose kept climbing, and they had no idea why. The answer was sitting in their fruit bowl every single morning. If mango is something you love, the version that works is half a mango, pre-portioned, eaten after you've already had protein. Not first, not alone. The half portion in the right context is manageable for most people. The whole mango on an empty stomach is not. Number 4 is where things get genuinely complicated, because number 4 is a fruit nearly every dietitian recommends, and they're not wrong. But there's a trap that comes with it that almost nobody mentions. Number 4, grapes. Here's the psychology of grapes, and it matters as much as the chemistry. Grapes are small, bite-sized, no peel to remove, no pit to slow you down, no friction between you and the next one. You eat one, and before your brain has registered it, your hand is already reaching again. That is the danger of grapes. Not the grape itself, the way grapes are designed to be consumed. The glycemic index is around 59, moderate. Grape skins contain resveratrol, which has real cardiovascular benefits backed by legitimate research. But here's what actually happens when most people eat grapes. They sit down with a bowl. They're watching something, or working, or just snacking, and 40 minutes later, they've eaten 50 grapes. That's 36 grams of sugar, 9 teaspoons worth, equivalent to what you'd get from plain table sugar, from something that felt like barely eating anything. The beneficial compound, the resveratrol, is concentrated in the skin. The sugar is in the flesh. So you're getting a small hit of genuine benefit wrapped in a significant fructose delivery, and the packaging is engineered entirely by nature to make moderation almost impossible. 10 grapes, counted out. Eaten after a meal that already included protein and vegetables. That's the sensible version of grapes for someone managing blood sugar. 10 sounds like almost nothing, but the flavor is genuinely satisfying. The damage never comes from 10 grapes after a meal. It comes from the mindless bowl, and grapes are practically built for the mindless bowl. Number 3 has a secret, and that secret completely determines whether this fruit is helping you or quietly working against you. It comes down to one single variable. Number 3, banana. This is the fruit I get asked about more than any other. Can I eat bananas? Are bananas bad for diabetics? My doctor said to stop. The concern is everywhere online, and the honest answer is, it depends, on one thing only, the ripeness. Here's what most people were never told. The starch inside a banana changes its molecular structure as the fruit ages on your counter. A banana that's still green and firm, slightly resistant when you bend it, that banana is loaded with resistant starch. Resistant starch doesn't get digested in your small intestine. It passes through intact, reaches the colon, feeds your gut bacteria, and does not spike your blood sugar. It barely touches it, but a ripe banana, yellow, soft, dotted with brown, that resistant starch, has chemically converted into simple sugars. The same banana, same weight, same size, produces a completely different blood sugar response than it did a week earlier on your counter. A study published in Diabetic Medicine showed that unripe banana flour significantly reduced fasting blood sugar and improved insulin sensitivity in type 2 diabetic patients across 12 weeks. The glycemic index of a green banana sits between 30 and 40, a fully ripe banana 62. Nearly double, same fruit, different chemistry, different outcome. The rule, eat bananas slightly green. Firm, a little resistant at the peel, not unpleasantly underripe, just slightly green. The firmer the banana, the more resistant starch, the gentler the blood sugar effect. And here's a detail most dietitians never share. A slightly green banana, sliced and placed in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, actually increases its resistant starch content further. Cooling triggers a structural shift in the starch, the same phenomenon that makes cooked and cooled rice and potatoes gentler on blood sugar than their hot versions. With bananas, the effect is especially direct. Refrigerate a green banana for 2 hours before eating, then eat it after protein. That's the safest version of a banana that exists. Now things start getting genuinely good, because number 2 is something you almost certainly have in your kitchen right now, and it comes with a built-in protective mechanism that most people accidentally destroy before they take a single bite. Number 2, apple. That old saying has lasted for generations, and for once, the science doesn't vaguely support it, it specifically explains the mechanism. The compound in apples that matters here is pectin. Pectin is a form of soluble fiber concentrated in the skin and flesh of an apple with the highest density in the skin. When pectin enters your digestive tract, it forms a gel, a slow, thick gel that physically coats the lining of your stomach and intestines. Think of it this way. Imagine pouring water through an open pipe versus pouring it through packed, wet sand. It gets through either way, but the speed is completely different. Pectin is the packed sand. Glucose absorption slows dramatically. The sugar from the apple, and from whatever carbohydrates you ate nearby, enters your bloodstream in a gradual trickle instead of a rush. A study published in the journal Diabetes found that pectin reduced post-meal insulin demand by 35%. 35% less insulin needed from a fiber already inside the apple, already built in, already included in the 79-cent purchase price, but here's how people destroy it without realizing it. They peel the apple, they eat applesauce, they drink apple juice. The moment that skin comes off, or the fiber structure is broken by processing, the pectin effect vanishes. Apple juice has zero functional pectin. Applesauce has almost none. A whole apple with the skin completely on, that is where the protection lives. Slice it, eat it after protein and vegetables, never peel it, that's the non-negotiable rule. A 2022 study from Japanese researchers published in the journal Foods tested apple consumption at different points in a meal and found that people who ate apple before their carbohydrates had a measurably slower glucose peak and a smaller overall spike than those who ate carbohydrates first. The optimal sequence: protein first, then apple, then carbohydrates. Protein slows gastric emptying. Apple's pectin builds a protective gel layer. Carbohydrates arrive last, when everything is already in position to absorb them gradually. That order costs nothing to implement and changes the blood sugar outcome of an entire meal. So if apples are number 2, what could possibly be above them? This is where Doris comes back. Number 1, blueberry. Let's return to Doris, 71 years old, a 1C of 8.4, 2 years of her endocrinologist recommending insulin. She kept saying no, give her 90 days, let her try food first. He agreed, reluctantly. She didn't overhaul everything, no extreme protocol, no supplements, no elimination diet. She added 1 cup of blueberries to every single day. She ate them after her protein at breakfast, not before it. And she stopped drinking fruit juice entirely. 90 days later, a 1C 6.1. Her endocrinologist ran the number twice. Then he pulled out his phone and started reading. Here's what the research says. A randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial, the highest standard in clinical research, published in the Journal of Nutrition in 2010, led by Dr. April Stull at the Pennington Biomedical Research Center, gave obese, insulin-resistant adults daily servings of freeze-dried blueberry powder. The control group received an identical-tasting placebo. After 6 weeks, the blueberry group showed significantly improved insulin sensitivity. Their cells had started responding to insulin again. The door that insulin was knocking on and that their cells had been ignoring had reopened. 6 weeks from fruit. The mechanism is this. The active compounds in blueberries are called anthocyanins. They're the pigments responsible for the deep blue-purple color. When anthocyanins enter your bloodstream, they activate an enzyme called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. Think of AMPK as a master metabolic switch inside each cell. When it turns on, the cell opens its glucose channels. Sugar moves out of the blood and into the cell where it becomes energy. Blood sugar drops, insulin sensitivity improves, and the effect persists for hours after the blueberries are eaten. No medication replicates this mechanism exactly. Drugs work around it or compensate for the deficit it creates. Blueberries activate the switch directly. A meta-analysis published in Nutrition, Metabolism and Cardiovascular Diseases in 2022 pooled data from 22 separate randomized controlled trials. Across those 22 studies, blueberry and cranberry consumption reduced fasting blood glucose by nearly 18 milligrams per deciliter and reduced A1C by 0.32 percentage points in people with type 2 diabetes, 0.32 points. From a fruit that costs 49 cents a serving, for someone sitting at 7.4 trying to break below 7.0, that 0.32 is not a rounding error. That could be the exact margin they've been unable to close for years. A 2021 trial from the University of East Anglia, published in Clinical Nutrition, tested 1 cup of blueberries daily in adults with metabolic syndrome. Average age, 6. Not healthy young volunteers with no metabolic history. People with existing dysfunction, the same profile as most people watching this right now. The blueberry group showed lower fasting glucose, lower circulating insulin, and improved cholesterol by the end of the trial. And the cost? A 2-pound bag of frozen blueberries at Walmart runs $5 to $7. Half a cup, the serving size used in most of these studies, costs around 49 cents per day. Frozen is not a compromise. In many cases it's superior. Berries are flash frozen at peak ripeness, locking in anthocyanin content at its highest point. Fresh blueberries, sitting on a grocery shelf for several days, lose anthocyanins through oxidation. Frozen preserves them. Blueberries also carry a glycemic index of 53, lower than apples, lower than most other berries, dramatically lower than anything at the bottom of this list. Combined with 3.6 grams of fiber per cup and the AMPK activating anthocyanins, you're not just avoiding a blood sugar spike. In the hours following consumption, your baseline glucose response may actually improve. That's what happened to Doris. Half a cup of frozen blueberries stirred into Greek yogurt every morning after her eggs. That was the anchor, and her A1C went from 8.4 to 6.1 in 90 days. For anyone currently on metformin, and many of you have been on it for 10 or 15 years, this isn't an instruction to stop. That is between you and your physician. What the research shows is what happens when blueberries are added alongside existing treatment. The participants in that stool study were already insulin-resistant when it began. The blueberries improved their insulin response on top of that existing condition. Alongside treatment, not instead of it. Now, before the action plan, stop for a moment. Because some of you are about to feel energized by what you just heard and go make a mistake that cancels every benefit I just described. These 4 errors don't slightly reduce the effectiveness of fruit, they flip it. They turn beneficial fruit into something that actively stresses the liver and spikes glucose. Here they are. Mistake number 1, fruit juice. Any kind. All of it. The moment a fruit is juiced, the fiber disappears and the sugar concentrates. 1 glass of orange juice carries 21 grams of sugar. Apple juice has 24. That sugar reaches the liver in minutes, with nothing to slow it, no fiber, no pectin gel, no protection at all. Metabolically, drinking fruit juice is nearly identical to drinking soda. That's not dramatic language, that's what the blood sugar data shows. And no sugar added on the label refers only to sugar introduced during processing. Every gram of sugar originally in the fruit is still present. You just removed the one thing that made it safe. Remove all fruit juice from your refrigerator today. Every bottle. Mistake number 2, blending. Smoothies look healthy, but a blender does something specific and damaging to fruit. It destroys the fiber matrix. Not removes it, destroys it. The fiber is technically still in your smoothie, but it's been shredded into fragments so small it can no longer form the gel structure that slows absorption. Your body processes the sugar from a smoothie almost as fast as it would from juice. A blueberry smoothie is not the same as eating blueberries. The clinical research on blueberries is built on intact, whole, or minimally processed fruit. If blending is unavoidable, add protein powder first, use a small fruit portion, and drink it slowly. But whole fruit eaten with a spoon will always outperform the blended version for blood sugar. Mistake number 3, fruit on an empty stomach. This is the timing error I see most often. Someone wakes up, grabs a banana or a large bowl of grapes, eats nothing else, and considers it breakfast. That fruit sugar arrives at your digestive system with zero opposition, no protein, no fat, nothing to compete with. It absorbs fast, blood sugar spikes. The fix costs nothing. Eat protein first. Even a few bites of yogurt, one boiled egg, or a small handful of nuts before your fruit changes the absorption curve significantly. Protein slows gastric emptying. By the time the sugar from the fruit reaches your intestines, the process is already operating at a much more controlled pace. Protein first, every time. Mistake number 4. Dried fruit. Raisins, dried mango, dried cranberries, dates, concentrated sugar with the water removed. A quarter cup of raisins contains 29 grams of sugar. Because the volume is compressed by dehydration, you eat far more than you would in fresh form before feeling any fullness. The fiber is technically still there, but the sugar-to-fiber ratio has become so extreme that the fiber can't compensate. One specific note: if you take warfarin or other blood thinners, concentrated cranberry products have documented interactions with warfarin and can shift INR levels unpredictably. Talk to your doctor before adding any dried or concentrated fruit to your regular rotation. 4 mistakes: juice, blending, empty stomach, dried fruit. Avoid all 4, and every fruit on this list will perform the way it's capable of performing. Now the action plan. In the morning, your anchor is half a cup of frozen blueberries stirred into Greek yogurt or eaten alongside your eggs. Not before the eggs, after, or alongside them. Pick up a 2-pound frozen bag at Walmart, Aldi, or Costco. $5 to $7, lasting close to 2 weeks. That single step is the most important thing in this entire protocol. At lunch, if you want fruit, 1 small apple with the skin completely intact. After your protein and vegetables, not first, not as a mid-morning snack by itself, after the meal. The sequence matters. At dinner, skip the fruit. Your body's capacity to handle glucose follows a circadian rhythm and is naturally lower in the evening. Save fruit for morning and midday when your insulin response is at its strongest. For portions, half a cup of berries, 1 small apple, 10 counted grapes, a few slices of green banana. These are portions, not rough approximations. A measured amount every single time. For sustainability over time, you don't eat blueberries every day forever with no variation. You rotate. Blueberries in yogurt one morning, strawberries over cottage cheese the next, a small apple with almond butter after lunch on the third. The principle stays fixed, low glycemic, after protein, measured portion, but the flavors change. That's how this becomes a permanent habit instead of a 2-week experiment. And remove the juice. All of it. If it comes in a bottle and has the word fruit on the label, it is the sugar that was in the fruit, minus everything that made it worth consuming. Replace it with whole fruit at the right time in the right amount. Track your fasting blood sugar every morning this week. By day 3, most people start to notice a shift.